We are live. We are alive on the YouTube. Somebody else is already live in Twitter. Join the space. On top, on time, anytime. Good evening. Good evening.
How you doing?
Doing good. You're always on time.
Have an alarm set. I let the alarm tell me when to go on.
That's handy.
Yeah.
I haven't even, like, my wife uses alarms on her phone all the time. They're like really annoying. But I just haven't got into using, I think I tried it a couple of times on my phone, but
I'll be like, I usually, for any meetings or even in my work life, if I have important meetings, I'll set alarms for like 2 minutes before them, because I'll find myself like just getting like wrapped up in something urgently, and then next thing I know, I'm like late to whatever meeting I had. Not like a physical meeting, but a lot of digital meetings.
Yeah.
Because in a physical meeting, you're driving there, so there's just so much work around being at that meeting. But with a digital meeting, it's like you kind of work or do stuff up to that exact moment. And I've actually caught myself like working or doing something into my meeting time without even noticing. So I just set alarms, or try to set alarms if I can remember to set those.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I would have to have my wife show me how to set an alarm on my phone. I mean, I could probably figure it out, but she knows how to do it like really good because she does it all the time. But
yeah, you've yet to miss one, so I think you're pretty good at just however you're doing it.
Yeah, I like to be on time. I do not want to waste people's time. You know what I mean? I'm not that guy. I mean, if I show up late to anything, I feel bad. Like, I endeavor to be on time or early if possible. It's important.
I think so too.
Especially when there are other people involved. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to be that guy that's late and 50 people are waiting on you for 5 minutes. You're like, oh, it's only 5 minutes. No, that's 5 times 50, which is 250 minutes, which is 4 hours of other people's time. Whoa.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, I feel it though. I'm glad we're both pretty good about it. Don't be hard on me the one day that I mess up.
No. See what happens is we build up this credit score. It's not like the whatever the 4 big companies credit score. It's a social credit score. And see, whenever you show up on time, and this applies not just to spaces or what we're doing, but anywhere, you establish a history of showing up on time. And I look at that as like you're making a deposit into your savings account. And that one time that you happen to be late, you're just making a little withdrawal out of your huge savings that you've built up.
Yeah. Yeah, people know it's more of just an honest mistake or something came up urgently for a second than a reoccurrence.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what happened with the tyranny of the urgent is what you were referring to when you had those urgent things that you're taking care of that cause you to perhaps be a couple minutes late to a meeting. So that I remember from books they call that the tyranny in business. They call it the tyranny of the urgent. So this is not urgent, but this is kind of along the same thought process. PDI. What happened with PDI today? I mean, suddenly everything turned green and seemed to be connected to PDI. Do you have any idea what was going on there?
Well, for sure it was pretty oversold. So I think that was in its favor. But I know that the PDI investigation crew put out a proposal today for wrapped PLS to be included in the being able to be collateralized for PDI.
Oh.
So there is no news on it, but I know that they put up that proposal today to get either approved or denied by RH.
And do you know how that would work? Like with so they can collateralize that vault with WPLS in addition to whatever else they were going to collateralize it with. Is that what the proposal was?
Yeah. So right now, the only thing that's collateral, and this is my understanding, I'm not one of the investigators. I just put pieces together when I read. And someone could correct me if I'm incorrect here, but right now, it's been changed previously by the hat, which is like the wallet that controls MakerDAO, to the collateralization is wrapped Bitcoin, the forked wrapped Bitcoin, not the bridged in one, the forked one.
Right.
And what they're suggesting in these proposals is to make PLS also a collateralizable token. And then they're going to, I guess, do them one by one. Is they're going to start with PLS, and then they're going to do PLSX, and then they're going to do HEX.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And this is people other than RH making these proposals, I assume.
Correct. Yeah, these are like the PDI investigation crew, the people who have been putting all these like on-chain pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
And who really believe in PDI being RH's stablecoin. They believe that it's possible that a step that RH wants to occur is for the people of Pulse Chain to make the decision to stabilize PDI at a dollar with our Pulse Chain tokens of being the collateralization, not RH. So then it's not something that's a token that's, or a stable coin that's RH's stable coin. Right. It's actually a fully decentralized stable coin that was actually done in a decentralized manner.
Yes.
So that's not guaranteed, right? Like they want to do this. So it's either it's true and it just moves forward in the right direction, or they can cross this off the box of, okay, this isn't the step he's looking for us to proceed with. There must be something else.
Right. So, and he wants it to look like, and actually not just look like, but, be instigated. That's the wrong term, but requested by the people of the network, not himself. I think is how he's driving it.
That's what they believe. Yeah, right. Yeah. Like it's not confirmed that's how he's driving it, but they believe that that's the direction that they're being led to, because they're finding some hints and they believe this is what he has wanted them to eventually do, is to take over. Not take over because he's the one that controls it, or these big wallets control it. It's not verified him, but people that believe it's him because of how much he holds. But they believe that he wants the people, the PDI community, or just any community, to step up and start making proposals, just like you can do with PDI or with PMaker over on Ethereum, right? Like you can make proposals on what can be a collateralization asset over on Ethereum for PDI as well. And then they vote on them, and if the proposal's passed, the hat can execute that proposal. So they think that they want it to play out in a similar fashion over here. Or the other thing is, if it's not part of his plan, this might suggest the idea to him to where he figures out a way to incorporate this in his plan. So both his plan could proceed, and then possibly the PDI plan could proceed as well.
That whole paganing thing is just beyond my level of understanding of crypto. It's just, I don't grasp the whole thing. I'm excited about it. I'm all for it if it happens. And when it happens, whatever the case, all I know is that if PDI so much as goes to 50 cents, That means a 2-cent pTGC for me, which is a 70x from here. And that's what excites me, you know. But even if I don't understand it, I know what it means for pTGC and UFO.
Yeah, for me, it's not even only the X's, right? It's also the amount of liquidity we would have instantly. So now our liquidity web would get so much bigger. And then the other side of it, we would have a fully decentralized stablecoin on chain, which would be super awesome. And not only on chain, but we would have a ton of liquidity on pTGC and UFO with this fully decentralized stablecoin that we were able to obviously scoop up at discounted prices, and then we would also have a whole farm built on top of a fully decentralized stablecoin too. So yeah, that's how I look at it. Also, is like if that narrative is true, like the pTGC and UFO community win heavily. If it's not true, it's generating tons of volume for us currently. Today is a good example.
Yeah.
PDI seems to move a lot more volatile than the RH tickers, and obviously we make revenue off of volatility. So we do need to have some plays that are a little bit more speculative to kick in the volatility to activate our machine. But we want to obviously ensure we're not just picking trash volatile tokens. We want them to be sustainable and have communities behind them and value behind them. And I think PDI, well, it has been our best pool to date. So if you looked at all of our decent sized liquidity pools, PDI has actually been the top performer out of all of them. So it's been a good decision as far as the X multiplier and Hart's laws goes, and also been a good decision just in the volatility in general.
Yeah.
But time shall tell, right? This isn't a guarantee. We're still everyone's still investigating this thing. I'm currently not, but there is people that I think that are doing a really, really good job investigating and trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yep. And I think somebody whispered in there just a couple of minutes ago that we scooped up a lot of PDI when it was really cheap. As we're doing with all the tickers, right?
Anyone we see, has a big footprint here on Pulse Chain and has sustainability, a community, volume, volatility, the things that amplify our machine, it makes sense for us to pair with. We just have to be very cautious with this action because we do know 99.5% of cryptos fail. And we don't want to be paired with failing assets.
100%.
So that would do the opposite for us. They'd be a bunch of anchors holding us down.
Right. And anybody can make a pairing, but
oh yeah, that's true too. There's tons of pairings out there nowadays where people are now pairing their tokens or tokens they're in that they want to see successful with us due to our sustainability, our liquidity, our community, our value appreciation. It makes sense because Hart's Law would also take an effect if they pair with us and then they're sitting there. We could drag them up as well with technically even zero buys on their chart.
Yeah, but I don't think it makes sense for them to burn their liquidity because if their tokens don't do well, they've got nothing.
Mando, I stopped burning liquidity a long time ago.
Oh, I know you don't burn liquidity. You say it all the time. People have been begging you to burn it forever. Yeah, that's a smart move, though. That's a smart move, Coach. That's not a dumb move. That's a smart move.
Well, like earlier on in our journey, it was like, Coach, why are you burning this shit token? So that's why I don't do it anymore. It's very smart.
Yep.
Yeah, I was more talking about just random other people, not like people that are close to this ecosystem, right? Like you'll see random pairs with us popping up all the time of people we don't even know are pairing with us. That's how big we're getting here on Pulse Chain is there people see there being value in this ecosystem, and it makes sense to provide LP with things that have actual value. Or if it doesn't have actual value, it's at in a way a dead end. It's liquidity that doesn't have real liquidity backing it, and there's no liquidity exit. So people are pairing with us due to us actually having liquidity exits, due to our chart going for the most part up and to the right. Obviously, there is sell-offs and big price appreciation moments too, but in general, we've been kind of chugging in the upwards and right direction. So it not only makes sense for us,
but at the same time, it's just the market. It's not really like we're moving down because of big sell loss. It's because of Pulse Chains, because of PulseX. Like pTGC UFO is one with the market, and it wants to be with the best top dogs like pTGC and UFO.
Well, pTGC, in my opinion, Coach, is outperforming the market dramatically.
Well, yeah, I agree on that.
It can, like for example, if it's up 1,800,000% since its deployment and down 46% on a FUD event, you're still destroying the market.
Oh, destroying it. Like Mando, like an example of like a random. This is a random ass token, but like the mystery token that like B-Roots like called and went up to 30 million, and then Ethereum moved back or dropped back, or the last like couple days, about 11-12%. That moved down 70%. So it's just like pTGC UFO does not compare to like the rest of the market. 100% agree with that statement.
Absolutely. And so I guess Zen, what I was saying is, when people, it's an amazing compliment to what's been created when people want to pair their thing to it, right? I prefer people, if they pair, great. It just continues to just create more volume, whatever that volume is, and buy and burns and LP at. But I prefer they don't burn all these little shit coins that they pair with pTGC, because that way they can unpair and we're not tied to dead tokens. That's my selfishness speaking. But yeah, sure, try to see if you can make your thing go. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter what you pair with. The thing you're pairing with could be amazing, but your shit's still totally flop.
Yep.
And that is indicative of most things.
Well, that's every crypto on any blockchain.
Yeah.
Right? Like Ethereum is an amazing product, but 99.9% of things that pair with Ethereum go up and then go down for the rest of their existence.
Exactly my point.
But at the same
good thing is, anyone who does want to pair with pTGC or UFO, they got to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do.
Hey guys,
and pay the fee to supply it, and pay the fee to pull it. So
yeah.
How's everyone doing?
Good. What's up, man?
Good. So I had a question. I was watching a video from Richard Hart today, one of the old ones, kind of like going through a lot of old content. And he was talking to a young kid about Bitcash, I believe. I just saw a small piece. I was driving. And he was talking about a project that the token economics were very good. And altogether, he really liked it a lot. And then he went on to explain that just having good token economics and good developers and a good idea wasn't enough for a coin to grow. So I just wanted to hear any of your opinions, right? Because we have a good ecosystem. I think we have really good products that are operating really well from the beginning. Now with him kind of like being away, okay, not being as public, and I feel, it's my opinion, I don't know if this is true or not, the community doesn't seem as strong as maybe a couple of years ago. Just what's your take on how do we make sure that the ecosystem succeeds in the long term? What are some of the factors that maybe I can look at that it is going to make this a success in the long term.
And you're speaking about pulse chain in general, right? Not pTGC and UFO.
Correct. I'm speaking pulse, PulseX, hex.
Okay. Yeah. So, one thing I'm actively trying to do is, and I think our community is trying to do, is working really hard to build a very strong sub community and sub alt token on this blockchain. I believe a lot of success that comes to blockchains comes from good projects being built on top of the blockchain. Even though I think RH's products are absolutely amazing, right? Like, he's delivered a few, like you just said, PulseX, Pulse, Hex, Inc, eHex, all amazing products. But I also think there's some sub micro alt tokens that can do crazy amounts of X's to help onboard people to this chain that are not directly correlated with RH. And I think that's one small thing that I know our community is doing to bring some good positive energy to here to Pulse Chain. I also think, we've also onboarded a lot of people just in general to Pulse Chain, and are huge advocates for RH. We speak highly about RH. We are we actually think highly of RH too. So it's not that we just speak highly. We actually think RH. We're students of RH. A lot of the design of these protocols are backed by RH. So I think as far as the products go, we have top-of-the-line products. We have a top-of-the-line blockchain. We have top-of-the-line DEX. We have a great store of value, actually multiple great stores of value, Hex, pTGC, UFO. I think all fall under these categories. But we still got to keep educating people, because one of the biggest hurdles, I think, is the fact that we are up against getting the attention of the general public, and we don't have unlimited marketing budgets like some of these competing ecosystems, because of them having a bigger marketing budget, or them being a little bit more scammy to where they're raking value in from customers. A lot of reasons, right? But I think as a community, we're trying really, really hard. It's hard to onboard when prices are low. I do believe once prices start going up a little bit, we will have an easier time bringing people over to this chain, because I think once people get here, the product is really, really sticky. Like, it's really awesome once you end up here. It's hard to bring people over to a chart that and this is my opinion, it's hard to bring people over to PLS when the chart is half a SAC rate. I think once it gets out of this zone, it will become easier to get people over here. And I think the community's morale will pick up as well, too.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you think that we stay as a subculture type of like a coin, or eventually? I mean, the question is, as a subculture coin, I think we can be successful, right? We can have some good price increase and everyone to make money, or do we feel like people at the top of the community or HR that they're really working for this to be mainstream and be a competitor of some of the main coins?
I think the overall goal is to be as mainstream as we can be. Obviously, I think we have a little bit of gatekeeping going on, but gatekeeping in the past for Hex hasn't stopped it from doing a large amount of X's. And I think getting attention once those X's started to come seemed very, very easy for the Hex community at those times, right? But right now, I think with the lack of X's and stuff like that, it's maybe a little bit harder of getting the general population attention. But I think that situation can turn within a short amount of time.
Right. Do you guys know of any exchanges or websites that they focus on highlighting good projects? And what I mean by good projects is like really true decentralized projects that have good token economics, that all together are good coins for people. Do we have such thing like that, or do you guys know of any?
Not really. I would say
My YouTube channel. I'm just fine. I'm so sorry.
You're so funny, Coach.
Well, I asked because I think it would be, we're trying to create new frames for people, right? And if we're looking at how do we differentiate from, how do we make some noise, in this cloudy and noisy environment? A lot of people just don't know where to invest. A lot of people cannot tell the difference between, like a decent project and a picture, of a clown. So my point being, I think that it would be a good idea, like if we're able to create some sort, I don't know what it would be, if it's a platform, if it's an exchange, some sort of something that brands itself as something that only highlights good projects, and it's something that it's not biased to any other projects, and it's sort of kind of like it gives awards, kind of like the Oscars. If you have something that is not biased and is just really truly picking good projects based on whatever parameters are, and then we can give the general public some sort of trust. I don't know if that would be. I don't know what you guys think of that.
Yeah, it's a bad idea. It's an idea that's been rehashed like 50 times already, and
Okay.
there's always bias built in, and it never generates actual what you think it would generate, because the markets move too fast, and even when you try. So here's an issue, right? When you say I'm not going to be biased, but I'm going to put things up there that are good projects. What you're saying is that you've used your professionalism to do a deep dive market analysis on a thing, and you think that you're going to be able to say that our platform is going to say that project is a good project, and then that thing freaking rugs.
Mm-hmm.
And
I can see that
over and over. And well, I'm not telling you, it's already happened to these types of platforms 1,000 times. So it's impossible in this industry to have a non-biased platform. And it's impossible to put stuff out there where you put your blue stamp on it and then it just rugs, because you truly don't know what's going to happen with those projects. It's just the nature of the game. But also, when it comes to adoption, you have to not live on Twitter social, because most people, they don't know what real data and metrics are on blockchains versus listening to people whining about why price ain't going up. The only thing that needs to happen is it needs to get it on an exchange, because it's just not true. Like, for example, Cardano is one of the biggest blockchains in the world, one of the most respected blockchains in the world, and it's on every exchange you could think of. But on the chain itself, today has $3.2 million in 24-hour volume, with 3,774 transactions in the last 24 hours, right? 3.2 million in volume with under 4,000 transactions. Pulse Chain almost has 10 times that amount of volume at 227.7 million with almost 400,000 transactions. It's literally 10x Cardano. So the situation with Pulse Chain is more indicative of a situation with the founder, a situation with the Securities and Exchange Commission, where larger entities don't want to stick their neck out to list it because it's under an investigation from the Securities Exchange Commission, right? And then you have these other issues because basically the system doesn't like Richard right now, just like it didn't like Trump, just like it didn't like Elon, just like Bitcoin called Ethereum a scam in the beginning and hated Vitalik. It's just kind of the nature of this industry, unfortunately, is that each thing has to go through its moment of you're a scam. Even Bitcoin had to go through it, right? So the best onboarding, the best way to double your user base is for each person on the chain to bring in one person. You literally double the chain overnight, right? So the question is, how many people have you onboarded into crypto onto Pulse Chain? Not you, just in general, but I'm just talking just in general. How many people have you, person, onboarded onto Pulse Chain who knew nothing about crypto this month? Right? If let's say we have however many users. Let's say we have 200,000 users. If 200,000 users just went out and onboarded 2 people this month, we'd have 400,000 users. It's not always the silver bullet of what we hear on crypto Twitter is the solution to the problem. It's not. I guess that's the underlying point I'm making.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How many users altogether do we have in the ecosystem?
Well, you can't really know because, you can track volume, right? You can track transactions. You can track TVL, total value locked. You can track how many wallets are on chain. What is the amount of new wallets that are growing every day, every week, every month on chain? Currently, Pulse Chain is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on Dex Screener in terms of out of all blockchains. And that's determined by multiples of different metrics. But when you're looking, for example, Cardano, and we're 10x everything of that in terms of transactions, Kronos, 8.6 million in volume, we're at almost 40 million in volume, right? Tron, 7.5 million in volume. We're at 27.5 million in volume. So it's just one of those things, man, where Richard created a real decentralized from every vantage point blockchain. It doesn't care about middlemen. And what happens is that people come in from crypto and they want Richard's chain to be centralized chains. They want Richard's chain to be like all the guys with 500,000 middlemen, where everyone takes your keys and everyone takes your coins and everyone. But Richard didn't design the chain that way. So there's a ton of options for people. Like we hear all the time, well, we need all these new things for adoption. We need exchanges. Fine. Exchanges would be great. Like if we get on Coinbase, if we get on Gemini and all these different things, right? But the main thing is, okay, well, why can't you just have them come over the bridge? Well, they don't want to come over the bridge. Look, I've personally onboarded an absolute shit ton of people that are complete novices that didn't know shit about crypto. And I literally walk them through it. The first thing you do is you set them up with their main exchange, their Coinbase, their fiat on and off ramp. They buy ETH. You set them up with your Rabby wallet or your MetaMask wallet. It takes literally 3 minutes. You log and file their seed phrase. You get their address. You send it there. You connect to the bridge and you send it. And it takes 96 confirmations. Now, that's actually even easier to teach somebody. And I know this for a fact because I know this is true because this is what I do, than to say, okay, go to MEXC and open up an exchange, KYC everything, figure out the user interface, look at the bids and the asks, and then see what you can do about getting your Pulse chain over there. But then you still don't want to keep it on that exchange because you want to have custody of your own tokens because it's not your keys, not your coins. So no matter what you do in this space, if you're teaching somebody the right way to do it, it's not on centralized sucking middlemen these scenarios. They have to learn how to do DeFi. The best thing about that, though, is that people who are operators on chain are the ones making all of the money. It's not the guys that are the little guy that just goes to Coinbase and puts 2 G's into Bitcoin. You see what I'm saying?
When you say the operators, who do you mean in the ecosystem?
I mean people that are actually taking self-custody of their assets and operating on decentralized exchanges on chain.
Got it.
Operators on chain, not people that are just solely dealing with centralized exchanges, right? And then secondly, Richard doesn't necessarily want people buying Pulse Chain and PulseX from Coinbase and from all these different things. He wants stuff coming through the bridge. He wants fees being generated for the network. He wants PulseX to be buying and burning itself up, creating mass value and revenue for the people who are holding these decentralized products. So it's a different philosophy, really, is what it is. But Hex single-handedly made Uniswap popular. It just did. I watched it happen, right? Like he popularized Uniswap with the launch of Hex. And then when he created Hex and people realized, holy shit, this guy actually made a real DeFi product that's like Bitcoin, removes the need for miners because it piggybacks off of Ethereum's security, but pays people who stake it instead of people who mine it. They didn't like that. They didn't like that because that represented a new kind of competitor that they didn't like. Here's the funny thing. It all moved that way anyway. And it all is moving that way. Right? There's so much shit now that's happening. Ethereum went from proof of work to proof of stake. You've got more DeFi stuff coming out every single day. So Pulse Chain becoming popular is a time thing. And it's also a timing thing within this market cycle because there's a lot of assets that are owned from within the OA that can potentially be used for amazing things, no expectations. But the timing of that cycle, the timing for that part of the cycle, it has not come. I mean, Bitcoin is not even a 2x above its previous all-time high, and Ethereum hasn't even hit an all-time high yet, right? Then we have the SEC. Then we have this FUD that happened during Christmas, perfectly timed during Christmas with this Interpol red flag bullshit that's just bullshit, you know? So I guess for me on my end, we need to be looking at teaching people how to do what Richard has always taught us to do. And that is to get the ETH, take self-custody, bridge it in. It costs nothing to bridge it in outside of a gas fee, and then go operate on the chain and have self-custody. You can literally take somebody from peak to trough who has the ETH in their Coinbase wallet from having ETH in Coinbase to being on Pulse Chain in under an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So all this talk about we need this and we need that, why? When you can literally just buy ETH from anywhere, take self-custody of it, and show somebody how to literally make 3 clicks and it's there in 96 confirmations.
Yeah, that all makes sense, and I agree. You know, this is a meal that we're cooking very, very slow, and you know, we're all waiting to brew at some point. Now, just to take a quick turn here on a different direction, when it comes to where we at, right, technologically, and you know, the new government, and we see all the advancement of AI. And so much energy moving into the crypto space. Of course, another question that I have in my mind is how do we stay relevant? Because at the end of the day, a lot of DeFi is going to keep coming up, coming out, and there are going to be a lot of good projects that are going to be promoting similar things to Richard's hearts. And you know, you're going to have governments probably creating coins and you know, trying to take as much control as possible. How do we still find, you know, enough people in the marketplace to make Pulse Chain or Hex relevant for the communities?
Zen?
Yep.
Do you want to take that, Zen?
Yeah, I'll talk about this topic. I personally believe that Pulse Chain, I even think Hex in general too, hasn't even started on its S curve. So I believe like everything on Earth has an S curve of an adoption, and I don't even think RH's ecosystem in general has even gotten much adoption comparatively to crypto. And then if you even think about how crypto has an S curve as well, and what that adoption could look like, I believe, are not at the end of the S curve just in crypto. I think, as you're saying, AI and internet and decentralized value, stores of value in crypto, if stuff like that becomes popular, which it seems like it's heading in that direction. Trump is crypto pro. So I think all those are aligning in a good direction. But as far as like competitive projects outpacing us, there's one thing about RH that I've always noticed. He seems to always be a few steps ahead of the rest of crypto.
Yep.
When he created Hex, it was ultimately a revolutionary product. He was someone that was creating one of the first DeFi products out there. When, like Mando was talking about, he started using Uniswap. Like, Hex made Uniswap popular. To me, I think RH has always been ahead of the natural curve of things, and he kind of popularizes a lot of stuff. So I personally believe he has something that he's ahead of the curve on with this blockchain. And I just don't think a lot of people know what it is yet.
Mm-hmm.
As far as AI and robots and stuff goes, I literally last space went on a huge rant about this. I personally think AI is taking over the workforce. I think robotics are taking over the workforce. You can learn how to operate them, or you can be replaced by them. Pick either one. Naturally, if the workforce and companies are using AI and using robotics to become more efficient, more structured, more consistent, more reliable, naturally we would bring that same stuff over to crypto, right? And this is really shifting gears a little bit. This is what we've tried to design with pTGC and UFO, is we've created a mechanically driven system to drive demand instead of relying on humans. Just same thing as the work companies have done. They didn't want to rely on humans to do tasks manually or even digitally. So they've switched to AI or robotics. We took that same route and saying, what's one of the hardest things about crypto? Demand, humans. Human demand is hard to guide in the direction of your product. So what we did was we made a system that was mechanically driven to ensure the demand over periods of time that aren't reliant on human interaction, to make it so we can be more sustainable, reliable, and have a predictable outcome, unlike being able to predict human emotions and human reactions.
So are you talking about in a world where AI takes a lot of the workforce and is doing a lot of things on its own? You're talking about like these projects being a solution for these technologies to adopt and be able to transact in a more efficient way? Did I get it right? Because I don't know your project. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so they're not transacting in a more efficient way. So like with AI and with robots, companies are using this stuff because they are more efficient, they're more reliable, they don't call in sick, they're more consistent, just the plenty of list of reasons. And what I was getting at is, if you don't get on board with them, if you don't become like an operator of these robots or a person who can operate multiple AI situations at once, you're going to get replaced by these AI situations or these robotic situations. So naturally, what we should do as tokens is try to find a way to incorporate mechanics into, like robotics, mechanics into our systems, because the world is becoming less reliant on humans. So we should build tokens that aren't reliant on humans. And that's technically what pTGC is and UFO are, is we found a way to mechanically drive demand. So we're not dependent on humans to buy up our tokens, and we can just let our mechanics, our machines, our robots inward our code, buy up our supply, trade our tokens to increase demand, reduce supply. Naturally, with basic supply and demand, if you increase demand and you reduce supply, it forces the price upwards. And ultimately, that's what most people want in token or an ecosystem, is they want price to go up. They want it to be sustainable. They want it to have longevity. They want it to pay them passive yield. There's a long list of things people are looking for, and what we're trying to do is solve it in a mechanically driven process instead of only being reliant on humans to do that for us. Same exact process that's getting taken in the real world with robots and AI. We're doing that in a tokenized way.
And then at the same time, this is a great example, and I just put a tweet on the Jumbotron, and a crypto influencer actually just commented or talked about UFOs, and aliens and UFOs is a great mascot going into I don't know forever, and it's a great incorporation to the agenda that we have alien technology that's never been thought of before in crypto history, and the rest is history. And you can look at the chart that speaks for itself. So, but anyways, go to that tweet, like, retweet, and then do a tweet, and then like, retweet on that tweet that crypto or Mason actually just did. Thank you. Sorry, Zen.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a different topic, but also with this ecosystem of pTGC and UFO, we kind of talk about that all the time. Is as far as a company goes, most companies or teams have mascots, and I personally believe gray aliens, UFOs are the best mascot in the crypto ecosystem. Hence the reason why that is our mascot, and it's very fitting that we have such a unique technology with our ecosystem to obviously increase its value over time. That, you know, we like to claim it as alien tech. It's very fitting.
I do agree. It's very fitting. It's great for marketing.
Mm-hmm. You know, everyone kind of talks about going to the moon and all this in crypto. I think it's probably the best mascot in crypto that's yet to be fully tapped into to its full potential.
I will say though that, you know, brother, this is obviously a very speculative space, right? I mean, this is, you know, blockchain in general is highly speculative. Even Bitcoin and ETH and that, right? It's not as speculative or volatile anymore as some. But then when you go into like the smaller blockchains, it's even more speculative, right? But if you're looking for security, this is definitely not the place to be. You know, just in general, you know, maybe put it in Bitcoin or ETH and feel good. But this is still a highly volatile environment. And it's still only 14 years into a brand new technology that in the future is going to completely revolutionize absolutely everything and change the world forever. We're still very young. Crypto, if you have an image in your head, it's still like a brand new baby that just had its first diaper put on, and it's just barely starting to crawl. That's really where we are in crypto. The governments of the world still haven't even created a framework for it yet.
Yep.
So of course, they're going to have a knee-jerk reaction. They're going to call Bitcoin a scam. They're going to call ETH a scam. They're going to call people that innovate on those things scammers, right? And that's like where we are. Bitcoin was a scam. ETH then in Vitalik was a scam. And now guys like a Richard Hart that did a full system state fork but made it even 10 times more decentralized. Now he's a scam, right? Even though the things had flawless operation, PEX, for 5 years now. And when you look at the chart from the beginning, it's still up like a shit ton. it's just indicative of where this space is. And I think a lot of people just really lose the reality that we really are in a highly speculative infancy stage of cryptography in the world still, and how it's going to actually impact the world. Until the governments really figure this out and create regulatory frameworks, it's going to be this way, you know? And then you look at Richard, and Richard obviously had a lot of fun doing what he did with Hex, and then doing a bunch of funny rage marketing. Some people loved it, some people hated it. But at the end of the day, he delivered Pulse Chain, and it's phenomenal. It is a phenomenal blockchain. It is one of the best blockchains I've ever seen. And it's the most decentralized blockchain that I know of in the world. It's not running on AWS servers. All the nodes are decentralized. You can't shut it down, you know. And it truly does represent what Richard has always taught people, that when Satoshi wrote the white paper, he didn't do it to create a bunch of middlemen, right? So I think that this is a thing where people do need to consider that there are time frames involved with this stuff. You know, Pulse Chain just launched a couple of years ago, and then immediately got slapped by the SEC, who's literally been suing everybody. So I just think that that's what we need to consider. But the things that are built on Pulse Chain, like pTGC, that incorporate, on top of the fact that you've got this amazing blockchain, you've got new technology that represents an innovation in blockchain technology that frankly does not exist on any other chain. pTGC represents the first of its kind, a first-in-class new technology of a decentralized financial product on one of the most decentralized blockchains in the world that is a system state fork of the second largest cryptocurrency in the world. So people really just need to realize where they are, when they are, and why they are, and then just be patient, understand where you're at in each cycle, and look for the things that have real value is really what it comes down to. Now, pTGC, if you're new, you need to just take a look at, has pTGC outperformed Bitcoin? Absolutely. Has it outperformed ETH? Absolutely. Has it outperformed the mean of everything on Pulse Chain? 100%. It's crushed everything, right? Why? Because it has the ability to generate real value like a company and bring real value from outside of itself back into itself perpetually, and then take and distribute that revenue proportionately to the very places that matter in this industry for the holders of the tokens. So it really just comes down to, what's your risk level, what's your speculation level, where do you want to be, how safe do you want to feel, and be part of the solution in terms of onboarding. Help new people on board who have an interest. That's how I really approach it myself.
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense. I think we agree on the markets, how speculative they are, the risk, and the reason that we are all here. I'll ask my last question, and I see that a lot of new people join the group chat. If you guys don't mind, just giving me a quick overview again of pTGC on why it's different than everything else, like you mentioned right now, just so you can understand it a little bit better.
You're up, Zan.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm literally driving through this one spot that always cuts me off. Give me 15 seconds. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, so I spent, even before this product was out, multiple years studying hundreds of different projects, pretty much what made them successful for periods of time, what made them successful for long periods of time, short periods of times, what made some fail. And I tried to take everything what I noticed good from some projects and bring them over to what this ecosystem is today, and take out all the fat, cut out all the fat, whatever made them fail, make sure that wasn't incorporated. Ultimately striving for perfection, knowing that nothing's perfect, but we can strive for trying to create a perfect product. But there was always this one thing that every product struggles with, and it's demand. Really, you can control price if you can control supply and demand. And supply is easy because you can incorporate within code a way to control the supply via burns or minting and staking with burns, or just a lot of different ways. You can actually control the supply. But the thing that everyone has a hard time controlling is the demand, because it's loosely related to human emotions, human reactions, etc. And then what we found here with pTGC and UFO was an actual way that we could control the demand based on the only thing that's guaranteed in the markets: tokens moving up and down. We can't guarantee markets are going to move up. We can't guarantee they're going to move down. We're in a bull market right now, and we've had a few weeks of red, right? So there isn't a guarantee that it's going to go up or down, but every day we can kind of wake up and be like, you know what, it's going to move up and down. So what we did is we found a way to utilize the market going up and down and make it to where it generates revenue for our specific tokens and brings that revenue back to the tokens via buy and burns, LP ads, and then APY for holders. So now our holders have a way to hold a token that's highly deflationary. So it's constantly buying and burning its supply. When it buys it, it burns it. So it's pushing PLS into the LP pools, taking supply, sending it to the dead address, while also paying them APY just for holding. And then there's also other things you can do to earn additional APY. But even the APY that gets paid out to these people, since there's no inflation, it has to get bought out of the current liquidity pools, also increasing the price. So these users could actually even sell 100% of their APY and not necessarily hurt the price, because the APY that was paid to them was specifically bought out of the charts already. Long story short, we found a way to actually create a system that generates value. Because in a standard token, the only reason the token goes up is because a user comes in and buys the token. But eventually that user wants to get revenue out of the system. So then they sell it and take the revenue out, and that revenue came from who? Other people in the system. But when you actually generate a system that generates value from outside the system and brings it in, you can create a scenario where everyone can win, because it's actually generating value and bringing it in. But in our system, all the revenue that is in the system is actually working for the holders 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, generating that value and making it more sustainable over time.
How is it generating revenue on its own?
So we have, if you look at pTGC and UFO, in total, I think it's over $30 million in liquidity currently. And that's quite a lot on chain. I think we are currently the largest token with the largest liquidity on chain besides RH tokens himself. Like, besides RH tokens, we have the most on chain liquidity. And we have made a web of liquidity that connects us to pretty much all the blue chips on chain, which then in turn turns into like an index of the whole entire blockchain. So we end up with getting the mean, the average of whatever the blockchain does on average naturally. But then as the blockchain goes up and down, let's say you held a bunch of the blue chip tokens. Some have more green than others some days. Some are up, some are down, right? They all move different amounts every single day. Well, since we've connected ourselves to all of them, as the things we're connected to move up and down, it creates price differences of our assets in every single liquidity pool. And then market makers come in and fix these arbitrage opportunities and then pay our system for doing so. In turn, the market makers are making a little fee on top of that. Whatever they can make off the top, they take home as their profit, but then they have to pay our system for doing so. And then they just do this all day long. As the market moves up and down, it creates these opportunities. The market makers come in, fix these opportunities, and then we bring in that revenue to our system, paying our APY, buying and burning our supply, and pushing our price in a general direction up and to the right.
It sounds good in theory. Yeah, it sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's been operating. So pTGC has been operating for 1.5 years now, and the system in general, when I came up with it, was a system that's never been done before. So I kind of made a mathematical prediction of what I believed it could do, just based on it doing this system every single day. I said, naturally, I believe this will push the chart up and to the right and generate value and pay the APY and buy and burn. But we were technically going into uncharted territories because I could mathematically kind of figure out what I believed would happen. And I was speculating on that. But it was something that was never done before. But as of date, all the calculations that we've predicted for the ecosystem, it not has only hit all those predictions, it's done even better. So the machine's even operating better than we even expected at the least unfavorable environment of pulse chain. So if you look at pulse chain is pretty much flatlined technically for 1.5 years. But our system runs off of volatility and volume. Well, there hasn't been a lot of volatility and volume on pulse chain, but our system is still operating so wonderfully and amazingly. I can't even imagine how great this system will operate once pulse chain actually starts having volume and volatility and increasing in price. So currently the system's been running pretty much better than everything on chain, but it's been running in an unfavorable environment. As soon as the system that we're built on turns favorable to the environment that we're built around, volume and volatility, it should turn this machine on another level. And I'm super excited to see what that turns out to be.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Is there any relationship between pTGC and UFO?
Yeah, I'm the founder of both pTGC and UFO. They both operate off the same mechanics that I kind of was just talking about, where they have this connected liquidity web and they let the market move up and down, and they utilize arbitrage bots when the token becomes priced differently in two different liquidity pools. It lets the market makers come in, fix the price, and they both collect the fee. But pTGC has a mechanism similar to Pulse X, I would compare it to, where there's single-sided staking where you can earn additional APY. And when you single-sided stake, you keep complete custody of your tokens, so you don't send your tokens to a smart contract. They actually remain in your wallet at all times, and you just earn additional APY for doing so. And most of the liquidity within pTGC is actually burnt. So everything that the machine is actually operating off of is burnt into the system to never be removed from the users of the system. The difference with UFO is a farm built on all of these mechanics. So instead of all the liquidity being protocol owned and burned, it's the whole entire community putting their value to work for the very thing that they hold. So you're actually incentivizing the whole entire community to add value to the tokens that they have, and they're getting paid for doing so in the form of PLS. So our farms actually pay our users in Pulse, to where a normal farm pays you in an inflationary token like incentive token. Ours actually pays people in the gas token of the blockchain. And they're not only earning additional rewards for themselves, they're also increasing the value of the UFO tokens that they hold. Not only by adding liquidity to them, because let's be real, really the only thing that drives real value is the amount of liquidity that's connected to that asset, but it's also increasing the web, which is increasing the buy and burn of that token, making it more deflationary and increasing the price over time.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll definitely look more into it. I think overall I got it, even though I probably got lost a couple of times. I'm not up there with you.
Well, look, when he says the web, he means that out there is a bunch of different liquidity pools where you have Hex and Pulse and Teddy Bear and PDI and all these blue chip assets on Pulse Chain that are paired in the DEX, right, with either pTGC or UFO. So it creates this liquidity web of all these different liquidity pairs. And as the prices are going up and down and fluctuating, which is the only thing that is consistent on a blockchain, is volatility, is up and down, because because the assets of this ecosystem are paired with all these other tokens and all these other liquidity pools. It creates all of these imbalances within the prices all of the time. And so market makers have to always come in and rebalance the price continually, constantly, perpetually. But these tokens are what are called fee on transaction tokens. So in order for the market maker to come in and buy up the cheap pTGC in one pool and sell it at a higher price in another pool, they have to pay a buy fee to buy it and an exit fee to sell it. Those fees come back to the ecosystem in actual real revenue that's given back to the holders.
Yeah, that's awesome. And no one has done that before?
Never. The only entities in crypto that do that are exchanges.
Yeah, I like it, guys. That's awesome. I have to run right now, but good talking to all of you guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, thanks for coming up. I just see the thing is, if you ever want to learn more, we have a Telegram and we do these spaces twice a week. We also do VCs in the Telegram pretty much every single day. So feel free to jump in anytime and just ask additional questions, or if you do look more into the ecosystem, we're always here to answer questions or help in any way. So feel free.
For sure. Thank you. I just follow you. If you don't mind sending me the link for the Telegram, I'll get in.
Will do.
Thank you.
It's always good when somebody new comes in and generates an hour's worth of discussion.
I know. Then you don't have to listen to me and Banana just yapping back and forth with each other.
Good questions, though. You had very sincere questions.
Yeah. Is there anything on that topic that we were just talking about? Do you think we need to close that discussion with Mando, or do you think we kind of hit it for everyone else listening?
I mean, I think it was answered very well. Everybody can raise their hand if they want to piggyback off of it and have other questions, I would imagine.
Yeah, the thing that you kind of said at the end, which I think is the real closer, is there has been something that has been using the same idea, and it's centralized exchanges. They have a liquidity web in their own way. It's a little different, right? This is all within their own system, but they have their own liquidity web, and they're charging bots and humans to make transactions, and within doing so, it increases their company, where we just kind of switched the model and made it to where it increases the value of our ecosystem and our community. And it's obviously very easy to see that in the last century, big exchanges are probably some of the most profitable companies that currently exist. So it would make sense for us figuring out this way to do it in a decentralized manner. Should be very lucrative for our community members.
Yeah, I mean, when we had over 200 grand generated in revenue in, what was it the other day, like last week? I think it was in 24 hours, 48 hours, with that massive move down.
Yeah, we got 100. It was 180K in 24 hours.
Yeah. So think about that. So in a moment of max FUD and max, what we would consider a very bad thing, right? This system was able to generate over $200,000 in revenue for the holders. And it all has already gone back to the holders in the form of massive amounts of burnt liquidity that you guys have been seeing coming in over the last few days, right? I think in the last 2 days alone, it was like what, almost $100,000 in LP added with PulseX or something like this. So, and there's more from it in proposals. So that is the thing. It's like, you know, and this is why, like, the last week, the post that came out, I was talking to Prairie on the backside about numbers and stuff. And, you know, the thing I like about it is, even though Pulse, you know, you have to be very patient with the chain and the price action of Pulse itself, the pTGC and UFO, they're performance amplifiers on the chain. So they're outperforming the things that back them because of the mechanics that undergird them. So they can do hundreds and thousands of X's against the true value assets. But let's just chalk it up right now to this. Let's just chalk it up to, for an example, Zen. Let's just chalk it up to the blue chips, Pulse Chain, PulseX, Hex, and 8, the RH core tickers. Let's just chalk it up to their stable coins in a way. You know, because they really haven't helped outside of just the volatility of the ups and downs for the last 15 months. It's been up, down, volatility, but they haven't stayed up and kept going up, right? My point is that the system, because of its design, is able to continue to generate revenue regardless of that shitty performance and make these protocols massively overperform. And it's doing it with not even a lot of volume on chain, with not even a lot of volatility on chain. So that's when Zen a few minutes ago said, you know, it's already overperforming what I thought it would do in my models. And that's before we even actually have the core assets on the blockchain moving into new all-time highs and moving up to new all-time highs and seeing more adoption, right? So that's why if you project out, and that's why Prairie loves the moon math calculator and all these different things, it really does get very interesting because, you know, a 10x from here is $1 billion market cap. A 50x from here is a $50 billion market cap. And those numbers in crypto they're not impossible to hit. Yep. Pulse Chain just has to go through hurdles. And none of this is a forward-looking statement, by the way. We're just talking. This is how the systems are designed on all of blockchain. But then you take the mechanics that are built into this, and it just amplifies the performance of what it's built on top of.
Yeah, I find it interesting because when I say like the models that I've ran, this has done ultimately better. You know, I'll be one to first say it. When I ran some of these models, I did not necessarily think Pulse Chain would be at the same exact price that it was at when we launched pTGC a year and a half ago. But pTGC has performed just as planned, even without any of the X multipliers of Pulse Chain that we still believe to come. And if it's performed this well in an unsustainable environment, really how big could this thing become? Like when you really sit back and say that to yourself, like if it's done this much with Pulse Chain doing nothing, what can this machine really become when Pulse Chain does something? You know, when we do have some green candles, when it is easy to onboard people to this chain, when we do get some X multiplier effect from the blockchain itself, the only thing it can do is amplify the machine even more. It just makes the machine run stronger and stronger and stronger. I'm just super excited to see what that ends up looking like. What it ends up looking like this coming year of 2025, what that ends up looking like 2026, 2027, 2028, you know, wherever that bear market is. I want to see this next bear market, what that machine is running at. Because most likely, pulse chain will not be at these lows even next bear market. So where is that floor? We don't really know, but I'm excited to see how much LP is there at that time, how much of the supply is bought and burned, what APY is looking like at that time. It's super fun, really, because we're dealing with something that's never been done before, and we are seeing how it acts in certain situations. Like, we've already seen how pTGC acted when PLS went up like 4x, right? We went up 40. But that's only PLS getting to 0.0002. But what happens if PLS is somewhat successful? Let's say it does a 20x. Where does that put pTGC and UFO? Where does that put the liquidity web? At billions? Does that put the buy and burn amount? You know, obviously if price keeps increasing, it becomes harder to buy and burn the supply. But what's that value worth? What's that value worth that can never be sold onto the market again? It should be very, very interesting. It's like a big experiment, and it's like a big crypto experiment that we're all along with the ride for. And that's pTGC and UFO. I also think PLS and Pulse Chains are also a big crypto experiment. So it's like a big crypto experiment on a big crypto experiment. Super interesting.
Yeah, it's scary. This is a grand experiment. There's no guarantees of shit. We can lose all of our money in this thing. But at the end of the day, and I just say that just to sober up everybody, right? But I truly don't think Pulse Chain's going anywhere at all. It's just, there's just too much big money backing it and involved with it, and it's just too damn decentralized. Just like ETH, but even bigger in terms of the decentralized, in terms of the nodes. If we can shift gears, I was in a space the other day, and this might be something. Mando. Yeah.
Before you go on this next topic, can you just take a note and could we answer Mikey's question?
Go ahead. Yeah, I didn't even know we had a question.
Mikey, I see you raising your hand. You can shoot your question if you want.
Hi, thanks very much. I just wanted to get your view on talking about the X multiplier for PLS and in relation to gas prices. And the reason I bring it up is because I experienced this about a month ago when the chain was pumping. It was 20 cents to do a swap. And it shocked me at the time. I was trying to redeem some Zen mints, and it were unprofitable to mint them. And I thought, blimey, this is like Ethereum. And so I went and looked at the gas prices, and it was 20 cents just for a swap. Never mind, doing a full block were like £2. So 20 cents to do a swap. So
and I'm assuming a lot more to claim the Zen, right? Because the claim of the Zen is probably more than the swap.
Correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay. That's why I went and looked at the gas price to see what the swap price was, because it was spiking at the time, was the gas price. And I remember it was a Sunday. I think it was due to feed, I think, was pumping at the time, and everything was pumping. And the swap price was 20 cents to do a swap on the other two. So I just thought, blimey, so a 10x will be $2, and a 100x will be $20. And at $20, we're getting into the realms of Ethereum. I'm like, what I'm trying to say is, Pulse Chain loses UFP if the price goes up too high. So I just wonder, would our rate suppress the price for gas reasons? Otherwise, he loses that advertisement of come over here onto Pulse Chain. It's cheap. It's fast. It's blah, blah, blah. It won't be cheap anymore. It'll be like Ethereum, won't it?
Yeah, so how I understand it is the gas that we're paying isn't based on the PLS price. It's based on the amount of people using the chain. So you almost need to rewind your thinking and not think about the quantity of PLS you're paying, but the amount of action that's happening on chain. And don't look at like, oh, if Pulse Chain does 100x, well, now I'm paying 100x on the gas. Because that's not the right thinking. Because it's not paid in quantity of Pulse. It's more paid in like a form of a dollar value. There's an equation to it. I don't know the exact equation. But it doesn't just equate just out how you said. What actually matters is the amount of usage of the chain. And my prediction is if the chain gets so much usage that we are now paying, let's say, $1 in gas, well, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. That means tons of people are using our chain. That means PLS is probably now at a lot higher prices because all these people had to buy PLS to even use it as a gas. And even RH kind of talks about this scenario is he increased the supply of Ethereum when he forked it over, and that's hence the reason why we're getting these cheaper gas prices. If we just absolutely kill it and hit crazy numbers again, ultimately he could just fork it again if it becomes not profitable anymore to be interacting all of us here. But I think we're very, very, very far from that situation, and if that situation comes true, I will gladly spend $1 to do a transaction because we would all, by being early adopters here, most likely be wildly rich, probably more than our wildest dreams.
So my thinking's wrong is what you're saying. But I was also thinking when, we've no adoption on chain at that moment. So what happens if adoption did come? That might double it again. But yeah, I'd be happy paying $1 or $2.
Yeah, so Mikey, when the price of Pulse Chain goes up, the actual native coin price goes up, it takes less of the pulse to actually run a transaction in a swap.
I'm with you.
It doesn't take more because the gas, the algorithm isn't linear in its scaling. It doesn't work that way. And people who, the way you described it, you described a linear scaling of the gas fees, but it doesn't work in that sense. In the beginning of Ethereum, there were times where people had to use a whole Ethereum to run a gas transaction. Now a whole Ethereum is $4,000.
Yeah.
Now it's way less than an Ethereum to run a transaction, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I was wondering about asking this question, but I'm glad I hopped on and did ask it now, because I was obviously thinking about it in the wrong way. So
every question's a good question, man.
Yeah, thanks very much for your answers. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so if you don't have anything else, I can bring up what I was going to talk about.
No, I'm good now, Mando. Thanks very much. You carry on.
Okay. Zen, is there anything else that you want to talk about, or Prairie?
No, that was it. Thanks for coming up, Mikey. Good to hear your voice.
Cheers, Zen. Thank you.
Yeah, Mando, I look forward to hearing what you have to say about that space the other day.
Yeah, so I'm always surfing projects and things, and we've had a bunch of different projects, a gazillion different projects, try to mimic the success of pTGC, and that's a compliment, right? And this is just conversation, because we need conversation and we need topics and we need to be able to educate and be the tip of the spear so that when questions come up, community members can hear them and answer them. One of the things that I heard this evening was that there's a flaw of pTGC is that it pays in pTGC instead of another coin. So the difference would be, for example, how UFO pays in Pulse. It doesn't pay in UFO when you LP it, right? pTGC pays in pTGC when you stake it. And when I heard that, I thought to myself, anything to try to get an edge, to try to make your thing look better than our thing, but the narrative isn't good at all whatsoever. And I'll just tell you why. Because in my opinion, with pTGC and earning the actual coin itself, the actual pTGC token itself, as opposed to ink or pulse chain or hex or any of these other things, right, is because of the fact that the pTGC is the very token that's been outperforming everything. Yeah. So I don't care about, and not only that, it's taking more of the tokens off the market. It's distributing them into long-term hands. It's making them more scarce, which is driving the price up. And I'm holding the very thing that is outperforming the mean of all the things that are backing it, right? The thing that's nice about UFO is that it is in the native coin when you're LPing. And if you want to instantly claim once a week, once a day, once a month, you can DCA with the native coin at zero slippage into the things that you like UFO and pTGC and all these other things, right? So I just thought it was interesting, this concept of, it's not good. And the argument was because, well, all they can do with it is sell it, right? So maybe you want to put your spin on that.
You're even missing the main point. And these people are talking about this code, but they actually don't understand how this code works. And that's how you know that they copied it, is because they're not the ones that actually thought all this stuff through. They just looked at what I did and mimicked it. No one realizes this. When you create a system that pays APY off of transactional volume, I'm going to give the example here. Let's say an arbitrage bot moves through our system and it moves $1,000 in, buys pTGC, and then goes into another pool, sells pTGC. So then the 5%, there's $100 collected, right? Let's pretend in this example that was all going to APY. No buying birds, no nothing. Just reflections.
Okay.
This is funny. Let's say we're paying out in ink instead of pTGC. So now that $100 bought 0 pTGC and bought $100 of ink and paid it to its holders. But in our system, that $100 buys pTGC and then gives it to the holders, making it to where it's actually increasing the price of pTGC with every APY that's paid out, even if every holder sold every piece of APY that they've ever received. Never going to happen. Look at the charts. You're still sitting in a better spot than their situation that never bought up their own supply in the first place. So it doesn't equal sell pressure on the chart, because it would have never landed in your hands if it wasn't bought out of the chart in the first place. And this is the problem when people mimic, is they don't actually understand how the systems actually function. They think they understand.
Exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. I just wanted to bring that
stuff like that, because they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and I just think it's great conversation. I think it's good conversation to have, and that you just crushed it with that.
People tend to forget that I spent 2 years studying every outcome of every situation on how these things actually function. I didn't get to copy someone to create this idea.
Exactly. And the other piece is too is that, you know, it really does matter where that fee goes and how it's distributed. It really freaking matters.
Yeah, 100%. But, you know, and that's not saying it's absolutely horrible to get paid in something else, but let's be frank. You said it. If you got paid out in any other asset besides pTGC, you lost compared to pTGC.
Right.
You made less X's in what you got paid out in. That's just that one point. The other point is it's not sell pressure on the chart because it would have never ended up in your hands if it wasn't bought in the chart. The fact that you're speaking is it just never got bought in before it paid you some other token in asset. And they don't understand that because they don't actually understand why the system is value generating. They don't understand that the APY that's being paid out is actually being bought out of the existing liquidity pools, increasing the price of the asset that you actually own to give you that APY. So when you mine pTGC, you are holding up the price, and every APY that you receive is increasing the price of pTGC at the same time. If you do decide to sell the APY, you're just right back at square one, where they never got off square one. And then we know that not every single person will always sell every single piece of APY ever to come in existence. So no matter what, we're getting a net positive step with every APY paid out.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you know, the funny thing is that those tokens are a very claim check on the other tokens.
Yeah,
paired with the other
deflationary
tokens
tokenomics
that go up with
and APY.
So yeah, that's all. I just thought, you know, let's bring up a funny concept and talk about it. You know, let's just talk about something cool regarding pTGC and and its outworkings. That's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard it 1,000 times. Really the biggest thing, I think, with pTGC, because code can be mimicked, right? You can mimic code. The few things that you can't mimic is our community is stout. Like, I honestly think we have such an amazing community that you just cannot mimic. Our theme and our narrative, our mascot is, in my opinion, an unmatched mascot. We are the first mover in this idea, in this theory. Everyone knows it. And then on top of that, we have $30 million in liquidity at the lows of Pulse Chain. And the liquidity is what's the value generating system for the system. If you don't have the liquidity to generate the value, you ultimately have nothing. And you can lie and say all the nonsense you want to make people believe separately. But the truth is, if you don't have the value generating machine in the community to back it, it's not much.
I'm going to your church. What day? What address? Off. So true. Community here is based. Even though the community doesn't know how to raid worth of shit. But it's funny because there's been so much success that it's like it's successed the raid out of them. They got so tired of green candles that they just forgot to raid.
That's a true
I
statement.
feel that. Yeah, I feel like just a couple days ago we hit an all-time high against Pulse Chain, and I didn't see one person talking about it.
Yeah. So Prairie, have you been running any cool numbers in the background, or you know, in your conversations, if you've been, you know, has there been anything cool kind of coming across your desk?
we did an interesting experiment with a hex stake last week. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was an interesting experiment. I'll pull it up. So somebody on Twitter the other day posted about how much a hex stake could earn in a month if it were staked for a year. And what they did is they used a calculator. I think it's called hexcalc.net. And they simulated staking 500, I think it was 500.
It was $500,000.
There you go. $500,000 worth of hex. And the monthly on it was about $3,700 per month. And so we were thinking like, well, I wonder how much volume pTGC would need to do to equivalent that hex stakes earning of $3,700 a month. And we came up with
with $500,000 worth of pTGC stake.
Yes. And actually, it doesn't even have to be. It could be $1,000 worth of hex, and except for you've got bigger pays better bonuses built in there. That is and longer pays better. I think some that would make that difference, but it would be scaled basically the same, whether it was $1,000 or $500,000. I just don't want people to get dismayed by, well, who has $500,000? Well, some people do. But the point is, it would be apples to apples, whether it's $1,000 or $500,000. So, but the $500,000 example, garnering $3,700 a month, $500,000 in pTGC equivalent input would garner $3,700 per month at $1.9 million in volume. $1.9 million in volume in pTGC, which we just had our first $1 million plus volume day a couple weeks ago. And Pulse is, kind of asleep. So the point is that.
And that is for somebody staked, not just holding, but staked as well.
Correct. Yep. And that's including staking rewards. If you don't include staking rewards, you're just holding those pTGC tokens, it would need to be $2.8 million in volume to make $3,700 a month. But here is the kicker. And I hesitate to say this publicly, but with the hex, your $3,700 per month that you're earning in yield is not available until at the end of year one. And there is an opportunity cost there. On the other hand, with pTGC, your $3,700 is liquid, available day after day. And there is an opportunity gain there. Let's see what other notes I can have. And not only that, but hex inflates while pTGC is deflationary. What else? What else? What other kind of nuggets were there that we pulled out of that experiment?
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
The one that stands out to me, and I think time will tell this answer because it is filled with unknowns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is APY is very, very important. Like the fact that we can earn more of something, we can mine more of something by just staking it. This is like the revolutionary idea that RH brought to the system of DeFi, is by holding up the price, the most important thing in the token, you can actually mine more of it for doing so instead of like mining hardware and stuff like that. So that's what's super revolutionary to Hex, which obviously we've learned from RH and implemented in our system. The thing that I think is interesting is how does over time the inflation of hex compare against the deflation of pTGC in price performance? I'm not saying one's going to do more than the other. I'm just saying I'm interested to see over time if the X's of one or the other makes the difference, right? Because right now we're just talking about APY. So for pTGC to earn the same amount of APY as hex, it would have to have a volume, an average volume of $1.9 million a day, which should be somewhat easily obtainable with Pulse Chain becoming more successful, right? Or even pTGC becoming more successful. But the fact of that APY being completely paid out in actual buys on the chart in the deflationary token instead of inflation, I'm interested to see how that plays out. But there's other mechanics to think too, because when people earn the inflation, they have to technically temporarily burn their hex. So there is a burn mechanism to hex as well. So I can't really just say that. So it's just interesting to think about it, that there's so many moving parts that we have to pay attention to. And I think they're both amazing stores of value that pay APY in a sustainable system. And just two different ways, right?
Yep. And that is very true. And the beauty of hex is, one of its attributes, its positive attributes, is that you do have to keep your hands off of those tokens for a year, which, it gives you some time to think about it too, and then at the end of the year, you have access to your 12 times $3,700 per month. Whereas in pTGC, you had access to it through the whole year. Another thing that we realize is that, we equivalated at $1.9 million in volume. But what if we do more than $1.9 million? Well, it just became more valuable. So in theory, if that volume were to 10x, in this example, it would mean that holding pTGC would have been 10 times more profitable.
Yeah, it's like the difference is one's almost a guaranteed APY, and then one isn't guaranteed but has the possibility of being more.
Yes,
right?
True. Yep.
Time shall tell.
Yeah, the thing I like about Hex is that it is just a guarantee because it is coming from inflation, like Bitcoin. I don't have to guess. I know what I'm getting. And as a matter of fact, I can get more if there are anomalies in the system. If people are EESing, if things are happening within the system, I can actually get more APY than that. The trade-off is the being liquid in the yield versus illiquid in the yield. So there's a trade-off, right? A cost benefit to both. And that's why I love it so much, man. It's like pTGC is like the inverse of Hex. And they're super complementary in very different ways, which is really cool because normally you have things that are not complementary, and that's why the Dow just keeps buying Hex crazily and pairing it with pTGC.
Yeah.
But it does make sense to take a look at these things because it was a great post from the gentleman. I thought it was a great post.
Yeah.
And it just sparks the question, like, oh, okay, well, what does that look like for this system? Like, how much volume does it take to generate that kind of a yearly or monthly yield in this system? And you obviously have the potential, like Prairie said, for more than that. So it's very interesting.
in the
But
experiment.
in terms of and Zen, in terms of the your question about the inflation versus the deflation, me personally, I would imagine that the deflationary aspect of pTGC would be more bullish for price, in my opinion.
Yeah, mechanically that was the point of adding that in there. Of course, the one thing that I find also interesting though is the locking mechanism that you are forced into with Hex to earn the APY is a form of a burn built into the system. So they're almost two different types of burns. One is like a temporary burn to get the inflation, where one is like a buy and burn forever deflation. Two different systems going, for also sustainability, right? Like going for the same goal of sustainability, price appreciation, trustless APY. Very interesting to I'm very interesting to watch the two next to each other for the rest of my life.
Yep. Yeah, and that experiment wouldn't have been really practical or as easy to conduct without, if we didn't have look into ptdc.com. That came in super handy.
Yeah. So the thing about it is that with Hex, guys, is that with Hex, when people are staking out on average of 7.5 years and doing 5.555s, that inflation is not hitting the market for years, right? And then by the time that inflation comes due, if they don't EES, by the time that inflation comes back into the market, the T-share rate has 4 or 5 or 6x against the actual token price, right? So now it becomes a system where you actually have a deflationary system in Hex, but it's not in the token, it's in the T-share. And it mimics the halving of Bitcoin. So there's a deflationary aspect that puts Hex out over longer time frames, where the Hex that comes back into circulating supply can no longer remit the same amount that when it started, because the T-shares are deflationary. They're getting way higher in price against the actual asset that allows it to be minted.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's so interesting about this damn thing.
What was the APY, Mando, on that Hex stake, the 500K for 1 year?
It was basically 3,800 a month. So for 1 full year, are you asking for 1 full year?
Yeah, I was just
45. It was essentially, you could put it right around 46 grand for the year.
I think the APY was 9%. That's what it's showing on my calculator and what it showed on HexCalc.
9.1%.
Mm-hmm.
And did you guys check what that would take with UFO?
No, this was just a pTGC conversation.
Kong did. Kong had the forethought, and he built it in. Let me see if I can flesh it out. So equivalent principle, and he just did $5,000 Hex, pTGC, and UFO.
But Hex has an amplifier for larger amounts of money, though, right? So if you're doing larger amounts for APY, it's going to be more.
Yes.
Where pTGC doesn't have an amplifier for larger amounts.
Yes, that is true. But with pTGC, $5,000 in principal, earning staking rewards and reflection rewards, $1.9 million in volume to equivalate. And in UFO, $5,000 in principal, $900,000 in volume to equivalate.
Well, why are we doing 5,000 instead of 500,000? Like, why are we doing that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask him.
That's not the same. It's not the same equivalent. Is it, Zen? It's not the same equivalent.
Well,
yeah, it technically
it is.
It's the same equivalent for our ecosystem. It's not the same equivalent for the Hex ecosystem, though. So I think what he's doing is just comparing it to 9% now, since he knows that
yes.
the 500K for 1 year gets you 9% APY. He's just trying to mimic any situation to what volume would it take to get you 9% in either UFO or pTGC.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reason being of why UFO is easier to get is because you get more percentage of the supply for a third of the price currently. So it costs you less money to get a bigger portion of the volume pool that's paid out.
So in terms of purchasing the UFO token, which gives you the shares?
Not shares, just the holding rewards. Since
you're talking about just holding rewards?
Yeah. So since UFO is because this isn't based on percentage of supply, this is based on dollar value put in. So if you bought $5,000 of UFO compared to $5,000 of pTGC, due to UFO being roughly a third of the market cap, so you would get 3 times the amount of the share of the reflections if you bought UFO. So that's why your cost to get the higher APY is actually less with UFO, because you're getting more percentage of the APY that's paid out with every transaction with a smaller dollar value with UFO. Once they become even, or if not once,
that's what I would say, Zen. Like run it where they're even, because that's how you run the actual number based on the 9%. It just kind of skews it. So you could just basically multiply it by 3 and come up with the same number then?
Well, almost. It's a little bit different, but you have to pay attention to the fact that what we're talking about is a user has $500,000. If a user entered pTGC with $500,000 today, or entered UFO with $500,000 today, let's say a user had 1.5 million, and he went 500K in Hex, 500K pTGC, 500K UFO. We know what he would receive in the Hex staking, 9%. For him to receive that 9% in pTGC, the volume would have to be, as Banana said, 1.9.
1.9. Yep.
But for him to receive 9% for just holding UFO, volume would only need to be like 900K. Because
he's getting more of the tokens right now at a cheaper market cap.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, if we could make UFO the equivalent of pTGC, would it be around the same? Because it seems like to me it would be more.
If UFO and they became like equal in value, where you got the same percentage of the supply with the same dollar amount,
I think it would actually cost more for UFO.
You would get more in pTGC.
Correct.
Yeah, because you're getting your portion of 2% there instead of 1%. The difference right now is you're just getting more percentage of the reward for a cheaper price. So it's currently outpacing pTGC in the APY aspect. But if they became even in the amount of purchasing power for the percentage of the APY, PTGC would pay you more because you're receiving 2% on every transaction instead of 1%.
Got you. This is so interesting. And, when you look at it like that, they all really are beasts of assets.
Oh, there's so many different levels
The difference
to look
is,
at.
the difference is that if the volume increases dramatically, with Hex you still get the same 9%. With these types of systems, it could go up much higher than that in terms of APY.
And lower.
Yeah. And lower if the volume goes lower. Correct.
Well, and then another thing you have to factor in is price of tokens. So if the price of tokens go out crazy in pTGC, you're going to be receiving less tokens, or even UFO, you receive less tokens for bigger dollar amounts, to where the inflation of Hex is not guaranteed in any dollar form. It's guaranteed in quantity of token form. Another variable that you have to factor into the equation that gives a completely different outcome at the end.
That's very true.
Because if PTGC's price just skyrockets and the volume doesn't keep up, yeah, APY-wise in dollar form, you'll be receiving crazy APYs. But
You rugged. Where'd you go, Hayden?
I think I see him still there as the host.
do you guys hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yep.
Okay.
You cut off at crazy APYs in USD, but
Yeah, like, so if the price of pTGC and UFO completely outpaced the X's of volume, so let's say pTGC does 100X, but volume only does a 5X. Well, the quantities of tokens you're going to be receiving are actually not going to be that good compared to the dollar value that you're receiving necessarily. Where Hex isn't paying you in dollar value, it's paying you in quantities of tokens.
yeah, it's paying you in
necessarily
Hex.
doesn't care. Yeah, it doesn't care what the dollar value is. It's going to give you that amount of Hex. So it's just crazy to think about, like, so many different moving parts that paid it in different ways. Just super interesting.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. It still goes to show how much of a beast the Hex smart contract really is. It
was
really
designed
is
like
an
6 years ago.
Yeah, it really is such a freaking phenomenal smart contract. You know.
Oh, it for sure is. It's one of the biggest things I studied in the build out, and that's why we're trying to get as much LP with it as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, I just saw.
We're going about
famous
2 hours
copy.
now.
Yeah, before we turn it off, I'm seeing some new faces come in and out, which is good. I'm seeing some old OGs tonight come in and come out that I know. Some very old school people coming in and out, which is great. Before we shut it off, does anybody else have any more comments or questions? Just something short. Does anybody want to come up and ask anything from what you've learned tonight, or clear anything up? It is why we're here. If not, it's probably time to shut her down and get back to the families, get back to the kiddos.
Yeah, I have something that I brought up this week that I'll say real quick, and everyone can kind of ponder on it, and we can finish the discussion on it on Saturday. I was looking on Pulse X to see what the APYs are of different LP pools in the DEX fees, not our farm fees. So when you're providing liquidity in the UFO farms, those UFO farms are built on top of PulseX. So you're not only receiving the PLS rewards from the farm, you're also earning the standard DEX fees as well, because it's built on top of the V2 PulseX, to where on a standard farm, for an example, the Inc farms, it's not on V2 PulseX, it's on V1, so you're not earning the standard DEX fees. You're only earning the incentive token fees. So I was just kind of seeing, well, we know it doesn't matter what pool you go into as far as PLS rewards, but what pool is the best as far as DEX rewards? And what I noticed was the PLS pool at this time I looked was paying 6% in just the DEX rewards. So you're actually able to multiply the DEX reward, or not multiply, add the DEX rewards by the PLS rewards to get you your true APY. So in the PLS pair, it was 6%. And let's say the PLS rewards is 10% in PLS. Well, you can actually add those two together to actually get the real APY. The real APY would be 6% for providing LP in that pool via our farms.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That means you're earning double. You're earning yield.
Yeah, you're earning in two spots.
And it's going directly into the actual LP, which is actually every time, there's an announcement that LP was added, there's actually more being added perpetually at a rate of 6%, you said?
Yeah, I didn't look at pTGC. This was the UFO PLS pair, because I was seeing what pair pays the most. So if you're looking at APY wise, in PLS rewards, all of the pairs pay equally. But if you also pay attention to the DEX fee rewards, PLS pays the most. It was at 6%. Because you're earning in both spots when you provide LP. But back to your point, a lot of the liquidity pools for pTGC are in V2, and those just compound on themselves as they're burned or as held, right? That's what you're getting at, is when we just put those tokens there, they're just going to sit there and compound on themselves, earning APY forever. But if you're holding them on the UFO side, like if you are providing LP, you're not only earning the farming rewards, you're also earning the DEX rewards, and you're able to look at what pools pay the most. Currently, the best pool to be in is the PLS pool, which makes sense. That's the one that has the most volume. That's the one everyone trades in and out of every single day. So it makes sense that one has the highest APY, because that one's specific to the volume in that pool.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. More money for the hosers, more money for the users, more LP. Good call tonight, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming up, Mando, and adding to the convo. I feel this call had a lot of combos going, so I'd say one of our better Monday calls.
Yeah, you know what? It'll be better started in January. Markets always die down and people start loss harvesting and go do the holidays, and they're spending way too much money on Christmas and traveling and, and then on top of that, Interpol FUD. So things should turn around here pretty quick, in my opinion. It's never a dull moment in crypto, especially on Richard Hart's chain.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, all right, guys, I'm out. I've got some stuff I got to do. You guys have a good night.
Hey, Mando.
You too, Mando.
Banana, you have anything to add before we go, or?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna be having a voice. Are you gonna have a voice chat tomorrow?
Tomorrow afternoon. What is it? 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yes.
If anyone who's listening doesn't like to come up to these spaces, on Tuesdays and Thursdays we do private VCs in our telegrams. They're a lot more private. They're non-recorded. If you have any questions about the ecosystem, feel free to just hop in there. Tomorrow, the one on Tuesday, is at 3:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If afternoons don't work for you, on Thursday, we have it at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So,
yeah, I'll be having an AMA also on Thursday. Instead of Wednesday, I'm going to have it on Thursday late morning. I think it's at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But you guys can find it on my channel, and I'll put it on Twitter too.
cool. All right. Thank you so much for co-hosting with me, Banana.
Absolutely, Zen. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. And then everyone who came in and listened, thanks for showing up and listening and adding to the combo. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So
See
much.
you guys.
All right. Have a good night, guys. Best founder in crypto right there. I believe that. Of course, I happen to be a little partial. Everybody doing good? 95 people in here. If you're not subbed to my channel, please do. It helps. That's a wrap. That's another Monday night stream in the books. Have a good week, guys, and we'll see you next year, 2025. I think a lot of us are going to become very wealthy in 2025. See you guys later.